What's up everybody? I'm Devin from Dr. Garage. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I run a Beam 3S GE in my AE86 drift car. I've been running it naturally aspirated for about 4 years now. I ran it on a stock ECU for about 2-ish years, and then I swapped to an Adaptronic M2000 standalone ECU, and I love it. Right now, I've got the engine of the car for some upgrades, like a Blitz supercharger and a OS Geiken super single clutch, and some other stuff. While I've got everything apart, I wanted to take some time to do some instructional videos and talk about all the things about doing a beam swap in an AE86. This video is going to be about intake setups. When you do a beam swap into an old Toyota chassis like an AE86, the intake ends up being super short, so the MAF ends up being really close to the air filter and really close to a bend in the intake, which causes turbulent airflow. Altezas in general have a hard time with aftermarket intake setups, so even things like from Apexi and Blitz and a few other companies, I've read all kinds of reviews where it actually causes idle surging and funky AFRs. I want to share the information that I've found from my Beam 3SG AE86's Facebook group, as well as what I've ran in my car, what's worked well for me and what's worked well for other people. This is the MAF housing that I use. It comes from a company called MRP Performance. They're based here in the USA, and this is the MAF housing I've been running for about 4 years now. I mentioned turbulent airflow, so to sort that out, MRP Performance builds their MAF housings with the option of an airflow straightener. That's what this honeycomb material is here. This is the airflow straightener. That material goes on the inlet side of the MAF housing, so your filter ends up being over here, and it straightens out the turbulent airflow and allows it to flow properly through the MAF housing. That way you don't get idle surging issues, you don't get turbulent airflow, you don't get biased AFRs and all that from weird airflow problems. I highly recommend that if you're doing a beam swap with the stock ECU and you're using the MAF sensor, make sure you get a MAF housing that has that airflow straightener. The next thing that's been talked about a lot is what's the correct diameter. So I wanted to explain what I run and what the stock Alteza runs, and then you can decide for yourself which one you want to purchase. The MAF housing I use is a 2.75 inch OD outside diameter and a 2.5 inch ID or inside diameter. I hit up my buddy Paul Harrison, who drives in the Dynasty Drift team. He's got this sweet minty green peanut Corolla. He also has an Alteza street car that has a stock intake setup on it. So I hit up Paul, he took apart his intake and sent me some measurements. The MAF housing I've been using for 4 years, 2.5 inch ID inside diameter. What Paul sent me shows that the ID of the Alteza MAF housing is 70 millimeters or about 2.75 inches. Holy crap, there's a difference. I've been telling people to buy a smaller MAF housing for years than what the Alteza uses stock. Let's talk about it a little bit. On the stock ECU, I've always ran my car in open loop. And the reason for this is I had issues running my car in closed loop, and I think this is due to an actual failure in the ECU. My throttle body never worked properly, so I did a mechanical override and a few other things. And whenever I tried to get it to run in closed loop, I had all kinds of problems getting it to run at the correct AFRs. So let's talk about how that all works. When your engine runs in open loop, the primary input for determining how much fuel is the mass airflow sensor. That's what determines how much air is flowing into the engine, and the ECU uses that to inject a proper amount of fuel. When you're running in closed loop, the ECU takes that information and combines it with the oxygen sensor information to figure out what kind of fueling strategy it needs, as well as using inputs like throttle position sensor and so on. I never had any problems with wacky AFRs. I never had any problems with idle surging or anything like that caused by weird AFRs, air-fuel ratios from the MAF sensor. If anything, my car might have ran a little bit richer, which is safer. And when your car is at wide open throttle, you're running in open loop anyway. The older ECUs can't go into closed loop when you're at watt and we're doing all kinds of crazy stuff like drifting or driving on track. Most of it ends up running in open loop at that time anyway. That said, the 2.5 inch ID is smaller than the stock Alteza intake, but I didn't have issues like these other aftermarket intakes do. MRP Manufacturing also offers a 3-inch OD and 2.75-inch ID MAF housing with the airflow straightener. So you can get the setup that I've been using for years, or you can get the setup that's more comparable to stock. I'll let you decide what you want to run. Now that you know what the stock intake is and you know what I've been running, you decide. Now you're probably going to ask me, where do I buy one of these from? Well, check the description in the video because I've got a link to my website, www.drgarage, where I've been posting all of the information that I get from this Facebook group that I run and share that information with everybody else. Now, also in the description are the instructions on how to get a discounted MAF housing. Follow the instructions and I'll get you hooked up. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you have any other questions about beam swaps.